Right now, deep inside you, hidden beneath the layers of who you believe yourself to be, lies a powerful force. It's something you've sensed your entire life, yet rarely faced directly. You feel its presence in moments of unexpected anger, in secret desires you've never allowed yourself to explore, in the envy that stings when you witness someone else's success, in dreams that shake you awake at night, leaving you wondering, where did that come from? Carl Jung called this force the shadow. And though you might think you know what it is, the truth is far deeper and far more powerful than you've ever imagined. Most people mistake the shadow for something evil, something dark, something to fear, something shameful that must be hidden at all costs. But this misunderstanding is exactly why the shadow grows stronger in the darkness. Because the shadow isn't evil. It's not a flaw in your personality. It's not a dark passenger meant to haunt you. The shadow is the part of yourself you've forgotten. It's everything about you that was deemed unacceptable, undesirable, unlovable by society, your family, your culture, or even yourself. Every part of you that you had to bury, deny, or repress in order to feel safe, accepted, or loved became part of your shadow. Your anger, your sadness, your vulnerability, your selfishness, your ambition, your desire. Even your joy can live in the shadow if it once made someone else uncomfortable. The shadow is the place where your power went when you gave it away. It's where your truth went when you lied to yourself to please others. It's where your freedom went when you chained yourself to what was expected rather than what was authentic. And now, in the dark, it waits, patiently, for the day you're strong enough to face it. Jung believed that everyone carries a shadow, and that avoiding it is the root of much human suffering. Depression, anxiety, self-sabotage, addiction, relationship problems, chronic dissatisfaction, all of them often stem from the parts of ourselves we refuse to see. The more fiercely you deny the shadow, the more powerfully it controls you, silently influencing your thoughts, your choices, and your actions from the unconscious. Think of all the times you judged someone harshly for doing something you secretly wanted to do yourself. Think of all the moments you exploded in anger over a minor inconvenience because you were repressing a deeper truth. Think of all the goals you sabotaged, relationships you destroyed, opportunities you let slip away, not because you weren't good enough, but because the shadow was trying to get your attention. The shadow doesn't punish you. It whispers, "Look at me, face me, accept me." Most of us spend our lives in a futile attempt to outrun our shadow. We distract ourselves. We numb ourselves. We hide behind work, achievements, relationships, or substances, believing that if we just run fast enough, we won't have to face the parts of ourselves we fear the most. But the shadow can't be outrun. It can't be silenced forever. And eventually it will find its way to the surface, often explosively, often painfully. But here's the secret Jung understood deeply, yet rarely made explicit. Within your shadow lies not just pain, but immense power. The shadow holds everything about you that society taught you was too much, too dangerous, too real to express openly. It holds your creativity, your authenticity, your assertiveness, your passion, your strength. All the energy you've been forced to hide or repress still lives within you, waiting to be reclaimed. Consider anger. The emotion we're often taught is destructive or inappropriate. Buried anger becomes bitterness, resentment, passive aggression. But anger acknowledged and integrated becomes boundaries. It becomes clarity. It becomes the fierce courage to stand up for yourself, to say no, to protect what matters. Consider your desires. The things you want deeply but deny yourself because you believe they're selfish, unrealistic, or shameful. Those desires, hidden in the shadow, don't disappear. They fester, turning into frustration, envy, or emptiness. But brought into the light, they become fuel. They become motivation. They become the blueprint for a life you truly want, not the one you settled for. Consider vulnerability, the softness you learned to hide because showing it made you feel weak or exposed. In the shadow, vulnerability becomes isolation, loneliness, disconnection. But reclaimed, it becomes intimacy. It becomes connection. It becomes the foundation of true strength, the kind that isn't brittle and armored, but fluid and alive. Your shadow is not your enemy. It's your lost potential. It's your unclaimed power. It's every truth you buried, every boundary you ignored, every passion you sacrificed. And the more of your shadow you refuse to face, the more of your life force remains trapped, unavailable to you, inaccessible, hidden behind a wall of fear and shame. Imagine what would happen if, instead of running from your shadow, you turned toward it. If you asked it honestly, what do you have to teach me? What strength have you been holding for me? What truth do I need to remember? This is the beginning of shadow work. Not a descent into darkness for darkness's sake, but a reclamation, a return, a reunion with the parts of yourself you've been missing all along. It's not easy. It's not comfortable. It requires you to be brutally honest, radically courageous, deeply compassionate. It asks you to let go of the person you've been pretending to be, to discover who you truly are. But the reward is profound. Because when you integrate your shadow, when you acknowledge it, embrace it, and allow it to teach you, you gain access to a depth of power, creativity, authenticity, and wisdom you never thought possible. You become whole. You become fully alive. You become someone who no longer fears themselves, because there's nothing left inside you that needs to hide. This is the hidden truth Jung knew deeply but rarely spoke aloud. The shadow isn't just darkness. It's the key to your freedom. It's the doorway to your most authentic life. And it's been waiting your entire life for you to walk through it. You've spent years of your life running. Not physically, but psychologically, running away from the parts of yourself that felt too dangerous, too painful, too raw to face. Every time discomfort rose to the surface, every time your insecurities whispered, every time anger threatened to explode or sadness swelled up from nowhere, your instinct was simple: suppress, distract, deny. But no matter how fast or how far you've run, the shadow has kept pace. You know it's true, because even in your most successful moments, even in your proudest achievements, there's always been a lingering sense of something missing, something not quite right. A quiet emptiness that creeps in when the lights go off and the applause fades. And what is that emptiness, really? It's not just loneliness or sadness. It's the void left by every truth you've buried. It's the silence of every emotion you've refused to feel. It's the ache of every desire you denied yourself because it felt selfish or shameful. The shadow is the keeper of all that lost authenticity. And until you face it directly, your life will always feel like a performance rather than a genuine expression of your true self. Carl Jung once said, "No tree can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." Yet most people spend their entire lives trying to grow upward, toward success, toward approval, toward safety, without ever allowing themselves to reach downward, into the darkness where their power truly lies. The result? A shallow life, a brittle existence, a self built on foundations that crumble at the slightest challenge or setback. But what if you stopped running? What if, instead of pushing the shadow further down, you turned toward it and said, "Show me. Teach me. Reveal yourself"? This act alone, of turning inward, of acknowledging the darkness, is profoundly transformative. It shifts you from victim to sovereign. It moves you from unconscious living to conscious growth. But this isn't about simply accepting your flaws. Shadow work is far deeper, far more revolutionary than that. It's about recognizing that your shadow is not just where you hide your weaknesses. It's also where you store your greatest strengths. Consider this. Why do you envy certain people? Why do some people trigger you so powerfully? Why do certain behaviors in others provoke an almost irrational anger or disgust? Because those people, those behaviors, are reflecting back to you parts of yourself you've disowned. Your envy isn't random. It's your soul recognizing qualities in others you secretly long to embody. Your anger isn't irrational. It's your psyche reacting to others displaying openly what you've spent your life suppressing. Maybe you judge someone as arrogant because you buried your own self-confidence. Maybe you resent someone for being selfish because you've spent your entire life putting yourself last. Maybe you're triggered by someone's freedom because you feel trapped inside obligations and expectations you never wanted. Every judgment, every trigger, every envy is an invitation, your shadow begging you to reclaim the qualities you've locked away. Imagine what would happen if you reclaimed your buried confidence. Imagine how your life might change if you allowed yourself to prioritize your own needs without guilt. Imagine who you could become if you stopped living inside other people's expectations and started living from your own authentic desire. This isn't selfishness or arrogance or rebellion. It's wholeness. It's integrity. It's the freedom to finally be who you truly are. But integration isn't easy. Shadow work demands courage, real courage. It requires you to feel what you've been running from your entire life. The anger you were taught was dangerous. The grief you were taught to numb. The vulnerability you were told would make you weak. Shadow work is the willingness to sit in the fire of your own truth and let it burn away everything that is false. Yet, this burning isn't destructive, it's purifying. Because as the masks fall away, as the illusions crumble, as the false self dissolves, what remains is your essence. Pure, powerful, undeniable. The you that was always there beneath the surface, patiently waiting for the day you were ready to remember. The shadow is not here to haunt you. It's here to heal you. It's here to return you to yourself, to reunite you with all the lost fragments of your soul. Jung understood this better than anyone. He knew the shadow wasn't just a dark cellar of hidden fears. It was a sacred vault of hidden strengths. It was the key to living an authentic life, one that's not merely successful or comfortable, but deeply fulfilling and profoundly true. Think of the times in your life when you felt most alive. Chances are, they weren't moments when you were playing safe, being polite, or conforming to expectations. They were moments when you allowed yourself to be raw, to be vulnerable, to be fully seen. Moments when you embraced your desires without apology, expressed your anger clearly, or showed your sadness openly. Those moments felt powerful because they were shadow integrations, brief instances when your hidden truth came to the surface and made itself known. Now imagine living your entire life that way. Imagine waking up each day and moving through the world with nothing hidden, nothing repressed, nothing exiled. Imagine being so deeply integrated, so fully whole, that you no longer fear your own truth. You no longer need to run. You no longer need to hide. You simply are. This is the hidden power of the shadow. It's the power to transform your life, not by adding more, not by becoming someone else, but by reclaiming what you already are. It's the power to turn your wounds into wisdom, your pain into purpose, your fear into freedom. Shadow work isn't a technique, it's an initiation. A journey inward that requires profound courage, radical honesty, and unwavering compassion. It demands you to look clearly at your darkest impulses and your deepest fears, and recognize them for what they truly are, gateways back to yourself. Because beneath the shame you were taught to carry, beneath the fear you learned to live by, beneath the masks you wear and the roles you play, lies your true self. Whole, unbroken, powerful. And when you finally meet this self, when you fully integrate your shadow, you no longer live at the mercy of unconscious patterns. You no longer repeat cycles of self-sabotage and self-betrayal. Instead, you become a conscious creator of your life. You move through the world not as someone running from the dark, but as someone who has walked through it and emerged stronger, clearer, and more alive than ever. This is the promise Jung rarely spoke aloud but deeply understood. The shadow is not your curse, it's your birthright. It's the hidden power that makes you fully, unapologetically human. And it's been waiting your entire life for you to finally claim it. When you finally confront your shadow, truly face it, feel it, understand it, something profound shifts inside you. You realize the darkness you feared wasn't darkness at all. It was power, authenticity, truth. It was the parts of yourself you'd locked away, pleading for release. And once you open that door, nothing is ever the same again. Because integrating your shadow isn't just psychological. It's profoundly physical, emotional, spiritual. You feel it in your body, the release of tension that has lived in your muscles for decades. You feel it in your breath, deeper and fuller than ever before. You feel it in your heart, suddenly open, raw, and more resilient than you thought possible. But most of all, you feel it in your sense of self. The fragmented identity you spent years upholding, the carefully crafted mask you presented to the world, begins to dissolve. And what emerges from beneath that mask isn't a stranger. It's the real you, unfiltered, unapologetic, undeniable. A self that's no longer afraid of its own truth. Carl Jung understood that this process, this integration, was never linear. It wasn't a one-time event, but an ongoing dialogue with your psyche. He called this process individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming who you truly are. Individuation isn't about achieving perfection or enlightenment. It's not about erasing your darkness. It's about owning all of it, the light and the shadow, the strength and the vulnerability, and becoming fully, authentically yourself. This journey is challenging, because even after you begin to integrate your shadow, society remains the same. The external world still pressures you to conform, to suppress, to deny. You'll be tested again and again, invited to return to your old patterns, to play small again, to perform again, to hide again. But here's the difference. Once you've experienced the liberation of shadow integration, the old life no longer fits. The mask feels too heavy, the performance too exhausting. The old beliefs about who you must be to be loved, valued, safe, no longer hold power over you. Because you've tasted something far more real, your own truth. And once tasted, this truth cannot be forgotten. When you integrate your shadow, your relationships transform dramatically. Because now you're no longer relating from fear, obligation, or unconscious patterns of pleasing or proving. You're relating from wholeness. You're clear in your boundaries, not because you're defensive, but because you finally respect yourself. You communicate directly, honestly, compassionately, not because it's easy, but because it's essential. You stop seeking validation externally, because you've finally reclaimed the validation you abandoned within. You no longer accept relationships that drain you, diminish you, or dishonor you, because you've healed the part of you that once believed you deserved so little. Your creativity transforms as well, because the shadow doesn't just hold your pain, it holds your passion. Your art, your expression, your innovation, your vision, all of them deepen profoundly. You no longer censor yourself, fearing judgment or rejection. You create from authenticity, from raw honesty, from the wild parts of yourself you've reclaimed. Work stops being a chore or a source of burnout, and becomes an extension of your true self. You no longer hustle to prove your worth. You express your worth through your actions. Ambition stops being driven by anxiety or insecurity, and instead flows from a clear sense of purpose, alignment, and desire. And perhaps most profoundly, your relationship with yourself transforms entirely. Self-care stops being a buzzword or an afterthought. It becomes the foundation of your existence. You honor your energy, your needs, your intuition. You stop gaslighting yourself into believing you must always be strong, productive, or perfect. Instead, you accept the cycles of your humanity, the ebbs and flows, the peaks and valleys, without judgment or shame. You discover something you've long forgotten. True strength isn't in endless doing. It's in your willingness to be present to your own humanity. Your strength is in your willingness to grieve, to rest, to surrender, to celebrate, to allow. Your strength is in your willingness to embrace your shadow, your vulnerability, your imperfection, and realize these are not flaws. They are sacred parts of your human experience. But shadow integration is not just individual, it's collective. Jung spoke often about the collective shadow, the unconscious darkness that humanity refuses to acknowledge. War, prejudice, violence, greed, hatred, all are collective shadows playing out at the global scale. When individuals deny their own shadow, the darkness doesn't vanish. It gets projected outward, onto others, onto groups, onto entire nations. This projection drives conflict, oppression, division. Because the enemy out there is always easier to face than the darkness within. But when you integrate your personal shadow, you stop participating in these unconscious projections. You see clearly. You recognize your biases, your judgments, your hidden fears, and you stop externalizing them onto others. In this way, shadow integration isn't just personal healing, it's revolutionary. It's how individuals contribute to a more conscious, compassionate world. It's how cycles of trauma, pain, and violence end. It's how humanity evolves, not through external achievement, but through internal awareness. When you reclaim your shadow, you become an example, an embodiment of authentic wholeness. You show others, through your very presence, that integration is possible, that it's safe to face the darkness, that authenticity is more powerful than performance. Your courage to do this inner work ripples outward, inspiring others to begin their own journeys. You become a catalyst for collective healing, not because you're perfect, but precisely because you're not. You show that true power isn't found in flawless facades, but in the brave act of living truthfully. You teach others, through your example, that the shadow isn't something to fear. It's something to embrace, something to honor, something to integrate, because within it lies humanity's greatest hope for real transformation. Your shadow doesn't vanish once you integrate it. It becomes your ally. It becomes your intuition, your strength, your depth. It becomes your greatest teacher, always guiding you back to authenticity whenever you drift into old patterns. Your shadow becomes the guardian of your wholeness, reminding you to remain fully yourself, no matter the cost. This is the hidden truth Carl Jung rarely voiced aloud. The shadow isn't a curse, it's the key to your freedom. It's your sacred path back home to yourself. And it's time to walk that path fully, without fear, without shame, without hesitation. Because on the other side of the darkness, there's a life waiting for you. A life not of perfection, but profound authenticity. A life that feels true, powerful, and unmistakably yours. The path you walk when you finally embrace your shadow isn't an ending, it's a beginning. Integration isn't a destination, it's an ongoing journey. The moment you believe you've finished this work, life will inevitably show you more layers, more depths, more nuances waiting to be explored. But each step forward on this path makes you stronger, clearer, and more profoundly yourself. Because now you understand something vital, something Carl Jung himself deeply knew. The purpose of your life isn't to be perfect or to eliminate your struggles. It's to become whole. It's to hold the contradictions within you, the shadow and the light, the power and the vulnerability, and realize that all of these are necessary. All of these are sacred. This realization transforms your relationship with pain. You stop seeing pain as punishment or evidence of failure. Instead, you recognize it as a teacher, a guide, a messenger. Your suffering no longer cripples you, it deepens you. Your wounds no longer diminish you, they empower you. Because each time life breaks you open, you're given an opportunity to reclaim another piece of your shadow, another fragment of your lost power. You begin to see life itself as a sacred initiation. Each challenge, each setback, each heartbreak is no longer a threat but an invitation, a doorway leading you back to your truth. You no longer fear your triggers. Instead, you welcome them as signals, pointing directly toward the next part of yourself ready to be reclaimed. You notice your reactions clearly now. When you feel envy, you no longer recoil in shame. Instead, you ask yourself, what does this envy reveal about what I truly desire? What part of myself am I denying that someone else is embodying openly? When anger surges, you no longer suppress it blindly. Instead, you ask, what boundary am I failing to set? Where have I betrayed myself? Each emotion, each reaction becomes a compass guiding you deeper into your truth. This changes everything about your life. Your relationships become deeper, truer, and more fulfilling, because you are no longer relating from a mask, a persona, or a false identity. You no longer tolerate connections that drain you or dishonor your boundaries. You hold yourself and others accountable, not from judgment, but from radical honesty. Your work becomes meaningful, not because of external validation, but because it aligns with your inner truth. You create not to please others, but to express what's genuine within you. Your creativity flourishes because you're no longer afraid of what others might think. You understand now that the most powerful work you can do in the world is to live authentically, to show up fully, without apology, without hiding. Your health and your well-being improve dramatically because you stop holding tension, trauma, and unresolved emotions in your body. You stop suppressing your needs for rest, for joy, for pleasure, for care. Self-care is no longer superficial. It becomes an integral part of your life. You no longer wait for burnout or collapse to take care of yourself. You honor your energy and your intuition daily. Spiritually, you feel profoundly connected, not because you're seeking external validation from the universe, but because you realize you are the universe in human form. You no longer separate your spirituality from your humanity, your darkness from your light, your shadow from your essence. You understand deeply that true spirituality is integration, not transcendence, not bypassing, not denial. And because you've integrated your own shadow, you become profoundly compassionate toward others. You recognize their unconscious behaviors, their projections, their pain, not from superiority, but from deep empathy. You know intimately how much courage it takes to face oneself fully. You no longer judge those still living in denial. You hold space, compassion, and quiet strength, knowing they too must find their own way in their own time. You become an example, an embodiment of wholeness, not because you're flawless, but precisely because you're fully human. You give others permission, through your very presence, to be human too. To acknowledge their shadows, their complexities, their contradictions without shame or fear. Your life becomes a testament to the power of truth, authenticity, and radical honesty. You no longer chase external validation because your worth is no longer a question, it's a knowing. A deep, unshakable knowing that you are enough, exactly as you are, shadow and all. This integration makes you powerful beyond measure. Not the brittle, armored power of someone desperately hiding their vulnerability, but the quiet, grounded power of someone who has faced their darkness and emerged whole. You radiate authenticity, clarity, and wisdom, not through force or performance, but simply by being fully yourself. You stop living reactively, pulled unconsciously by old patterns and unresolved wounds, and begin living consciously, deliberately, intentionally. Your choices reflect your inner truth rather than external expectations. Your actions align with your deepest values, not social conditioning. Your life becomes your own, a true expression of who you are at your core. And when new challenges inevitably arise, as they always do, you no longer panic. You understand clearly now that life's challenges are not punishments, they're invitations. Each new difficulty is simply another opportunity to reclaim more of yourself, to integrate more deeply, to become even more fully alive. Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Yet the pain he spoke of isn't punishment, it's liberation. It's the pain of letting go of who you thought you needed to be, in order to become who you truly are. It's the pain of shedding false identities, old beliefs, limiting patterns, and self-sabotaging behaviors. It's the pain of dying to your false self, so that your true self can finally live. This is the hidden power Carl Jung knew intimately but rarely named explicitly. Your shadow is not something to fear, but something to embrace. It's not a curse, it's your greatest ally. It's the secret keeper of your authenticity, your creativity, your passion, and your true strength. The life you've longed for, the life that feels genuine, meaningful, and fulfilling, is waiting on the other side of your shadow. And you are finally ready to claim it. Because the darkness you once feared isn't darkness at all, it's your power. It's your freedom. It's the part of you that makes you fully, unapologetically human. And now it's time to step forward, out of the shadows and into your truth. Subscribe to the Awakened Compass and join our membership to unlock the full journey within.